It's been, for some people, it looks like it feels like it's been a big adaptation to working from home, and for others, maybe it hasn't been. Um, in particular, when you think about just work in general, do you ever have a feeling of, it'd be just easier to just quit? Or what's your arrangement like? So when you think about your childcare arrangement, and for those of you who are just in the room, please feel free to type into the chat as well. Have you ever had this idea where it would just be easier to quit, or I need to reevaluate my childcare choices? And if you wouldn't mind sharing, what is your childcare arrangement currently?
I can go on that one. I
Thank
mean,
you.
I've definitely had moments where I've thought, oh gosh, like I would just love to just quit. I wish I had that option. And we live in the Northern Virginia area, and it's not really an option because it's really expensive and we need both of our incomes. And so I've just kind of buckled down, and I'm really thankful. I've made some wonderful friends over the pandemic through work who are also working parents who I'll just be like, oh my gosh. And normally it's days where honestly, work kind of collides with my son's doing virtual schooling and he's an only child. And I know his loneliness right now. I grew up an only child too. And so he's really lonely at times. And he's bored with school, and we're doing the best we can do. But he'll come and I can see him disengaging, and I'm trying to keep him engaged. And I'm faced with meetings, and I am trying to juggle it. And I'm on my meeting with my boom up and I'm listening to them, but I've done like the US Constitution or we're now into Virginia. And I'm like, yeah, we're working on this. And then I'm like lowering my boom and answering and then up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? But I also know as a woman, if you step out, you never get back in the same way, realistically. And I'm not willing to give it up. And I'm hoping that this is temporary. And I know that we've got, maybe another 9, 10 months to go. So just to keep pushing through, hopefully. I mean, our school is going back in, hopefully in the fall full time. So hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Meaty, do you
Hope
want to
So
chime in a bit after what Marianne shared? Because you also have one child, and how is he doing? He's in high school, so what's
Great question, Jess. I think the first thing is we all probably have varied approaches and reactions as parents based on our age of our children, right? I'm looking at Brittany right now, and I see her beautiful little one right there. And if I and Brittany, hopefully you hear this from my heart. Again, had this conversation with Liz before. I know and this is a great opportunity because I'm looking at Brittany like it's an amazing. But I ask myself, how present is she able to be as she's trying to manage that at the same time? And a great conversation that somebody had, particularly those of us that are women, can you really have it all? And that's been the question that I've asked myself, like during this pandemic of, can you really still meet those professional obligations and still be fully present at home, right? And I think for me, the older the child is, particularly because my son is an only child, I have had to rather make him get outside. Luckily, he plays across, so he loves his sports. But we have to be very careful about the mental impact, because children also have anxieties are increased. Depression has been increased. Phobias for school have increased. I have a friend whose daughter is going into the first grade, who had been, kindergarten rather, and because they've never had that full experience of school, so now it's going back. And so I think looking at our children and understanding what their needs are, I personally, because I'm also a nursing leader, so I manage a team of about 70 individuals, what I realize is that I think parents really just need flexibility. I think it's so important for those of us that are in companies and organizations or that are leading and the work that, Kunik does is just, at the end of the day, everybody doesn't necessarily want to be a stay-at-home mom or dad. I just think people want to be able to have flexibility. So when that, first dance recital is there, that you can leave half a day, when that lacrosse game is there, you can leave. And I think the biggest takeaway that I've had, particularly over this past year, is really making sure that we have flexibility, because everybody, like Brittany, can't manage their kid in Zoom. Or if my son was upstairs playing Xbox with his friends, you would hear that as well. So I just think we should just give ourselves a little bit of patience, self evaluate where we are, check in mentally to make sure we're doing okay. And then quite frankly, be bold and, talk to our leaders about what it is that we need as parents.
Love that advice, Meaty. I think that's super helpful advice. And the idea is flexibility, right? So, Marianne, you mentioned sometimes you think maybe I should just quit, but then really you're not willing to give it up because you know that there are going to be career implications and that you do want that time to actually progress in your career. So it's a very difficult and delicate balance. Anyone else? What is your arrangement like? How do you balance between work and family, or if you can even call it a balance at all?
It's all just kind of chaos all the time. Like everything is just happening all at once. Like, and which is fine. I'm a chaos demon. I lean in. We're great. But for like most people who aren't used to, accustomed, enjoy chaos, it can be really overwhelming. And I get that. Like even I have had that. I just want to quit. Like I'm just going to be a trophy wife and just like I'm going to stay home and I'm going to bake cookies and like that's great. I'm going to write a blog. That's what I'll do. But it comes down to, and I echo what Marianne said, my career is what I do for me. That's where I water my garden. These kids aren't going to be in my house forever. Mine are 14 and 18. They're getting the boot soon. I joke. I'm not actually going to kick them out. But all of that time when they were younger that I spent just parenting them, I kind of, when they hit adolescence and were doing their own thing, I was like, okay, now what do I do? And so like, I'm not willing to walk away from that just because there's like a temporary like roadblock or something for me. Cause like Marianne said, like, that's mine. My career is mine. That's for me. And that's how I refill my pitcher, and everybody comes to me with their cup out. So if my pitcher is not full, I got nothing to offer.
I love that analogy. It's so true. I feel like everyone is always hungry in this house, and it's my responsibility to feed all of them, right? So it's so true that you can't really fill others' pitchers until you fill up your own, and or their cups, I guess. But also that what you do for work is self-care essentially too, right?